shovel hits something that isn't dirt, not a rock. Metal. A dull sound, right under 6 inches of red clay. You're 15. You've been setting fence posts since noon, $9 an hour, cash, no breaks written into the deal. Your gloves are torn on the left palm. You stopped noticing an hour ago. You kneel down, you dig with your hands now, not the shovel. Whatever it is, it's heavy, coiled, old enough that it comes out of the ground in pieces of rust as much as metal. You don't know what it is yet. You just know 2 things. It's not supposed to be here, and somebody buried it on purpose. You wipe it on your jeans and look up and across the field, on a horse that costs more than your mother's car. A boy your exact age is watching you. He doesn't say anything. Neither do you. You put it in your bag. You won't understand why you kept it for another 46 years. Otto finds you before you find him. He's standing at the edge of the field, arms crossed, watching you turn the thing over in your hands as it might bite you. "Careful with that," he says. "Put it away before Ashworth's boy comes over here and decides it's his." You don't ask how Otto knows what it is. Otto's 68. He's been fixing fence in Bridleworth since before half these families bought their land. He just never bought any of his own. 2 fingers gone on his left hand. Wire got him in 81. He tells the story differently every time, and you've stopped trying to figure out which version is true. You finish the fence line before dark. 600 feet, cash at the end, folded into an envelope by a man who doesn't come outside to hand it to you. His housekeeper does. You count it twice, walking back to the truck. It's short, $11 short. You don't say anything about the $11. Otto taught you that in week 1. You don't fight over $11 with a man who owns 400 acres. You remember it. That's different. Here's the thing nobody tells you about land, and you learn it this afternoon without anyone saying it out loud. The Ashworths don't work. It's a Tuesday, 3 in the afternoon, and the whole family is home. Not sick, not between jobs. Home, because home is where the money already lives. The land pays them whether they show up to it or not. You get paid exactly for the hours you can prove. That's the entire difference between you and Colby Ashworth, and you're too young right now to have the words for it. You just feel it. The way his horse doesn't flinch at the sound of your post-hole digger. The way he watches you the same way you'd watch weather. Something happening near him. Not to him. You don't hate him for it. Hate takes energy you don't have left after a 9-hour day. You just remember it. That night in Otto's garage, you lay the thing out on the workbench. It's a chain, a surveyor's chain, Otto tells you. 66 feet, 100 links, rusted through in places. Before anyone had GPS or laser measurement, a man walked property lines with exactly this, link by link. And whatever he wrote down still shows up on deeds today. Whether the county's checked it since or not. You ask him what it's worth. Otto doesn't answer that question. He answers a different one. Everybody on that hill is measuring something, he says. Most of them are measuring this week, this month, if they're patient. He nods toward Bridleworth, toward the horses, toward the boy who watched you dig. You want to end up owning anything worth having, you're going to have to measure something longer than that. Then he tells you the rule he'll repeat for the next 46 years, the one that matters more than the chain, more than anything you'll ever buy with it. Walk a property once, you see what's wrong with it. Everybody does that. Walk it twice, slow, and you start seeing what's actually there. Most people never walk anything twice in their life. That's not a money problem, that's an attention problem. Money just makes it show up faster. You don't know what he means yet. You will. For the rest of your life, on every piece of ground you'll ever stand on, you'll walk it twice. And you'll never fully be able to explain to anyone why the second walk matters more than the first. Walk it once, you see what's wrong. Walk it twice, you see what's true. Otto makes you walk every property twice now before you're allowed to quote a job. Not once, twice, no exceptions, not even when you're tired, not even when the job is small. You think it's superstition for the first few months. Then you walk a fence line at the Callaway place, and the first pass you see a sagging gate and a rotted post. The second pass you notice something else. The ground stays soft 40 feet past where the old fence bends, in a way it shouldn't, in a way that means water's moving somewhere it isn't supposed to. You mention it to Otto that night. He doesn't smile much. He smiles that night. That's the whole trick, he says. Everybody else is still looking at the fence. October comes, and with it, a lesson about money that has nothing to do with money at first. A family 2 roads over is closing up their equipment shed for the season, selling tools off before winter because storing them costs more than they're worth to people who are done with the work. You go on a Tuesday, cash folded in your sock, and you buy a post-hole digger, a come-along, and 40 pounds of wire for $11. Everyone else in Bridleworth buys this exact gear in April, full price, because that's when they remember they need it. You bought yours from people who wanted it gone more than you wanted to save money, which meant you weren't even negotiating against them. You were just the only one paying attention in October. It's a small thing, but it's the actual insight. Most financial advantage isn't cleverness. It's just noticing what everyone else is too busy to notice. The feed store marks down wire before Thanksgiving because nobody's building a fence in the cold. The diner runs specials on Mondays because Mondays are slow. None of it is hidden. It's just unwatched. Deshaun thinks you're cheap. He says it once, standing next to you at the feed store, watching you haggle over wire that's already marked down 40%. You're not cheap. You're just paying attention to a calendar most people don't know exists. By November, you've got 11 properties signed for winter fence repair and gate maintenance. One flat number for the whole season instead of a price per storm, because Otto taught you that too. People with money don't like small bills all winter. Give them one number in November, and they'll pay it just to stop thinking about it. $1,200 sits in an envelope taped to the underside of your dresser drawer. You don't touch it. Not for anything Deshaun wants to split at the county fair. Not for a jacket that would have been nice to have. It stops feeling like money you earned and starts feeling like something else. Proof that you can see something before it's obvious, and that seeing it early is worth more than working harder once it isn't. Most advantage isn't cleverness. It's paying attention to a calendar other people never learn to read. The snow starts in January and doesn't let up for 6 days straight. You're out at 4 in the morning with a headlamp and a shovel, clearing 11 driveways in Bridleworth before the families inside them wake up and pretend they don't notice. All 11 signed a flat-rate winter contract back in November. One number for the whole season, storm or no storm. While every other kid in town is still knocking on doors asking $20 a driveway, one storm at a time. 6 days of snow just made your November math look like the smartest thing you've ever done. You can't keep up alone, so you called Deshaun. He's been your best friend since the two of you split a peanut butter sandwich in 4th grade because neither of you had a whole one. Built like he could move a truck by himself. Allergic to mornings in a way that used to be funny and is now, at 5 a.m. in a snowstorm, mostly just true. You pay him by the driveway, cash, and you cover the gas. It's the first time you've ever paid another human being for their time, and it feels stranger than it should. By March, you're doing something Otto's been quietly steering you toward for 2 years, not just reading fence lines, but reading the paperwork underneath them. He shows you a tax bill from one of the horse properties you service, and points at a line you'd never have looked at twice. Some land gets assessed differently depending on how it's actually used: hay, grazing, working farmland. And the rules for qualifying change from state to state, sometimes county to county. Otto's careful about it. He's not a lawyer and he says so. I don't know Bridleworth's rules any better than the next man, he tells you. I just know enough to know there's a difference, and that most people never bother asking what it is. That's the lesson, more than any specific number. A lot of the wealthy families around you aren't doing anything magical. They just have someone, an accountant, a lawyer, a habit passed down, who reads the fine print that most people skip. You don't need to become an expert at 17. You just need to learn that the fine print exists and that not reading it is a choice. Even when it doesn't feel like one, you file that away. You don't say it out loud to anyone but Otto. In April, you go after work most kids your age can't even get in the door for: the funeral home's front lawn, the church parking lot fence. You show up in an ironed shirt with one typed page: prices, dates, a phone number that isn't your mother's. The funeral director signs without negotiating a single line. Boring wins contracts. Nobody tells teenagers that. Nobody tells anybody that, actually. Everyone's too busy chasing the exciting version of getting ahead. Then Deshaun almost quits. He wants crew hoodies, something with a logo, something that looks like the two of you are winning instead of just working. $140 you don't have room for in the number you've been protecting since October. You argue about it in the church parking lot until he goes quiet and stares out at nothing. Your best friend just became your first real lesson in what it means to run something with another person attached to it. You buy the hoodies out of your own cut, not the business money, yours. The truck stays exactly as ugly as it was. Deshaun stays too. By August, the envelope under your dresser has turned into $14,000. Most of it sitting in an account your mother had to co-sign for, because you're 17 and the bank 2 towns over won't open one for a minor loan. That part isn't glamorous. It's just how it actually works, and Otto makes sure you know it before you're embarrassed to find out on your own. You still haven't spent $1 of it on anything you couldn't sell back. A lot of wealthy families aren't doing anything magical. They just have someone who reads the fine print and knows it exists at all. There's a notice stapled to the pole outside the hardware store, and you're the only person in Harlow's Bend who stops to actually read it. A county tax sale. September 9th. Otto explains it to you carefully, the way he explains everything now. Not like a lecture, like a man who doesn't want to be the reason you get something wrong. When a property owner falls seriously behind on taxes, the county can eventually sell the property or sell the debt against it to recover what's owed. How that actually works, whether it's a lien sale, a deed sale, whether there's a period where the original owner can still redeem it, depends entirely on the state, sometimes the specific county. I've seen it done 3 different ways in 3 different places, Otto says. Don't assume you know the rules just because you know the word. You spend 2 weeks at the county clerk's office instead of guessing. It's not exciting. It's paperwork and waiting in line behind people older than Otto. But by the time the auction comes, you know exactly what you're bidding on, and exactly what you'd own if you won, which turns out to be rarer than you'd think, watching the other bidders in the room. 2 lots on the list catch your eye. The old grain co-op building behind the hardware store, boarded up since before you were born, and a rundown 2-family house on Maple Street with the porch coming off one side like it's trying to leave. You walk both. Twice each, the way Otto taught you 6 years ago in a field that feels like a different life now. The first walk shows you the weeds and the broken porch. The second walk shows you a corner lot 2 blocks from the elementary school, a roofline better than the peeling paint suggests, drainage that runs dry and clean instead of the kind that ruins a foundation in 10 years. You've got $130,000 now, 6 years of fence work and snow contracts and driveways cleared before sunrise, and you've never once spent it on anything you couldn't turn around and sell for the same or more. The auction is in a courthouse basement that smells like burnt coffee and old paper. You win both properties before lunch. Your family finds out at a cookout 2 weeks later. Your uncle puts his paper plate down hard enough that people turn. 6 years of shoveling snow and fixing fence, he says, loud enough for the whole yard, and the boy goes and buys a building the county condemned. Nobody laughs, but nobody argues with him either. Your mother doesn't say you're wrong. She just looks at you a long time and says, "You know what you're doing?" And it isn't really a question. It's a request for reassurance she's not sure you can give her. You can't show anyone a bank statement that proves you're right. There's just a weedy lot and a house with a bad porch, and 6 years of quiet math nobody watched you do. Nobody claps for a property nobody wanted. That's not what it's for. You move into the Maple Street house yourself. Not the good unit, the bad one, the one with a water stain on the ceiling shaped like a state you've never visited. The good unit goes to Mrs. Iris Calloway, 71, a retired church organist who pays her rent early in cash in an envelope with your name written across the front in careful cursive. You tell her, the day she moves in, that her rent won't change as long as she keeps paying on time. You mean it as a small thing. It won't stay small. At 20, you learn what the word landlord actually costs. A phone call at 2 in the morning. Kneeling on someone else's bathroom floor with a rented drain snake inside a building you technically own and can barely afford to fix. You fix it anyway. Mrs. Calloway makes you a plate of something warm at 3 a.m. and won't let you leave without eating it. Then you walk into the bank on Main Street for a loan, dressed the way you've dressed every day for 6 years. Work boots, a jacket that's seen weather. You get a no in under 10 minutes. Naomi Okafor, the loan officer, reading glasses on a chain, talks mostly to your boots. She never opens the folder. You come back 3 weeks later in a pressed gray shirt, boring as a Tuesday on purpose. The same file typed clean. Mrs. Calloway's rent history right there on the first page. Naomi reads it twice. Naomi says yes. The loan turns the Maple Street house into leverage, and this is where Otto pulls you aside before you sign anything and makes you sit with a question you'll come back to at every level from here on out. Owning something and owing something on it are two different feelings that happen to sit in the same building, he says. You're about to learn the difference. Most people don't learn it until it costs them. You sign anyway. Your hand doesn't shake, but you remember what he said. You'll remember it for the rest of your life, at every size of debt that comes after this one. Owning something and owing on it feel the same right up until they don't. You've got 30 buildings, man. Your cousin says it from the passenger seat at a red light, like it's an accusation and a compliment at the same time, like he hasn't decided which one he means yet. He's not wrong about the number. He's wrong about what the number feels like from the inside. 6 fence and driveway contracts became 14 rental units. 14 became 30, one purchase at a time. Most of them bought a way you didn't expect. Not through a bank at all, but through a deal an older owner offered you directly. He was retiring, tired of tenants and toilets, and he told you plainly he'd rather collect a monthly check from someone he trusted than deal with a bank's paperwork and a bank's timeline. You pay him. He carries the note. It's not some secret trick only patient people get access to. It's an ordinary arrangement between two people who agree on the terms, and it comes with real risk on both sides. If you miss payments, the consequences are spelled out in a contract, same as any loan. If the numbers you gave him were wrong, he's the one exposed. Otto makes you read every line of it out loud to him before you sign, twice, the way he taught you to walk a property. A handshake feels friendlier than a bank, he says. That doesn't make it safer. Read it like it's a stranger who might sue you, because someday, it might be. Every rent check goes back into the ground. A roof here, a down payment there. Naomi approves the next loan faster each time now, because the file keeps proving itself before she even opens it. You cross $1 million on paper on an ordinary Tuesday in April. You find out from a spreadsheet sitting in the truck outside the hardware store, eating a sandwich you packed yourself because the diner's gotten expensive and you've gotten cheap in exactly the way that matters. Here's the thing nobody explains about real estate money. You're a millionaire who checks the vending machine at the car wash for correct change. The truck is 12 years old. A weekend trip anywhere would cost about what a roof costs, and the roof always wins. Being rich on paper and having cash in your pocket are not the same condition, and confusing them is how people who look successful end up in real trouble. Your net worth is real. Your liquidity is thin. Both things are true on the same Tuesday. Your family doesn't see the difference. That's when the asking starts. A cousin needs $900 for a car repair. A friend from high school wants a bar idea funded, sure thing, guaranteed. Everyone's got something urgent, and you've become, without asking for the job, the family bank. A no from you gets remembered. Written down somewhere permanent, in a way a no from anyone else never would be. You find your own answer to it. No to cash. Yes to shelter. You move your mother out of the rental she's lived in since before you can remember and into the best unit you own. Corner windows, a furnace that actually works. She cries standing in the empty kitchen before a single box is unpacked. You fix the roof yourself the following Saturday, and Otto comes to help, handing shingles up slower than he used to, his old work gloves loose on his hands in a way they didn't used to be. You notice. You don't say anything. Neither does he. Rich on paper and rich in your pocket are two different conditions. Confusing them is how successful people go broke. The drought hits in July and doesn't break until October, and that summer you learn something about land that has nothing to do with owning it. Half the ranches around Bridleworth go quiet, not sold, not abandoned, just quiet, the kind of quiet where nobody's watering anything they don't have to. Otto sits you down with a stack of old filings from 2 of your parcels and walks you through something you'd never had reason to think about. In parts of the American West, water rights aren't automatically part of the land above them. In some systems, they belong to whoever established the right first on record, regardless of who owns the ground now. I'm not a water lawyer, Otto says, the way he always says it before he tells you something useful. But I know enough to know you check before you assume. Some families up on that hill have owned their acres 3 generations and never once confirmed what they actually can control underneath them. You check. 2 of your parcels carry water rights nobody bothered to verify when they were sold to you, worth more in a dry year than the buildings sitting on top of them. That night, walking the fence line with Otto, slower now, a cane doing half the work his knees used to, something occurs to you that you've never said out loud, and you almost don't say it now. You know more about this land than anyone I've ever met, you tell him. You taught me everything. Why didn't you ever buy any of it? Otto doesn't answer right away. He keeps walking, the cane finding the uneven ground before his feet do. Knowing how a thing works isn't the same as owning it, he finally says. I could read a property like a book. By the time I was 30, nobody ever handed me the money to buy the book. And by the time I had a little saved, I'd talked myself out of it so many times. Talking myself out of it got to be the whole habit. He stops walking. You want the truth? I was better at teaching you to see value than I ever was at believing I deserved to hold any of it myself. You don't know what to say to that. You've never heard him say anything close to it before. First walk for the damage, he says, starting again, changing the subject the way he always does when he said more than he meant to. Second walk for the bones. You still do both walks, every time. Even when you already know what's there. That winter you're in a bar downtown, and across the room is Colby Ashworth. Same age as you, to the month, same porch voice he had at 15, the one that used to narrate your work like you were a show he was watching for free. His card comes back declined. He laughs it off, hands the bartender a second card, tells him to run it again like the machine made the mistake. He doesn't look over at you once. You have a speech you've been half writing since you were 15. You don't give it. You raise your glass maybe half an inch and let it go. Otto's words stay with you longer than Colby's declined card does. You have the money now. You have the knowledge Otto has. You're one of the only people you know who has both at the same time. And you understand for the first time how rare that actually is, and how much of it was luck as much as work. Knowing how value works and owning it are 2 different lives. Most people only ever get one. The best year of your life is a hard year for a lot of other people. That's not a coincidence, and by now you're old enough to stop pretending it is. It's a rough winter for agricultural credit across 3 counties. Whole blocks go quiet, 1 moving truck at a time. Properties that would have sold for real money 2 years ago move for a fraction of that because the banks holding the paper don't want land, they want the debt off their books, fast. You walk those streets with Otto on a cane full time now and still calling it the ice out of habit. First walk for the damage, second walk for the bones. He's slower. You slow down without either of you mentioning it. The deal that changes everything that year is 20 distressed farms sold as one package. To close it, you put up nearly everything you own against it. Every property, every account, even the Maple Street house, where Mrs. Calloway still lives in the good unit, rent frozen since the day she moved in, the closest thing to a promise you've ever made in writing. If the deal goes wrong, her kitchen belongs to a bank that's never met her. You sign anyway. Otto walks you through a piece of the tax code that makes a deal like this survivable. A 1031 exchange, he calls it. And he's careful with the explanation this time, more careful than he's ever been with anything. It doesn't make the tax disappear, he says. People say that like it's magic. It isn't. You sell one property, you roll the gain into another qualifying one, and the tax bill follows you down the road instead of landing on you today. That's the whole trick. It's a delay, not a pardon. Someday somebody pays it. You or whoever inherits what's left. You listen carefully. It's the first time Otto's corrected himself mid-sentence in front of you, like he wants to make sure you don't walk away with the wrong version of something this important. Then comes the part that doesn't show up on any spreadsheet. Outside one of the houses in the package, a family is moving out in the cold. Not dramatically, just quietly. The way people move when they've run out of better options. A kid on the curb, maybe 10, watching you the way you used to watch Bridleworth from the wrong side of a fence. You give the family 90 days free and cover the building's bills yourself while they find somewhere else. It costs you $4,000. The building earns that back within 2 years. You sit with something that winter you don't say out loud to anyone. Not even Otto. Doing something decent and making money from the same decision aren't opposites. They can both be true at once. And pretending they can't is its own kind of dishonesty. You didn't do it purely out of kindness. You also didn't do it purely for the tax write-off. Both were true. You let both be true instead of picking one to feel better about. In one stack of paper that crosses your desk that season, buried near the back of a file, you find a name you know. Bridleworth. A second mortgage, 8 years old, taken quietly against land that was supposed to be too settled to ever need one. Ashworth. You don't say anything to anyone. You close the folder. By summer, the deal's gotten too large for one signature to carry. The bank wants a real company behind it, partners, accountants, books that close on schedule. You build one in a rented office above the hardware store, and it eats every night you have for months. One of those nights is Otto's 80th birthday. You miss it for a closing that genuinely couldn't wait. And you also know that's exactly what you told yourself the last 3 times, right up until it stopped being true. You drive to his porch at midnight with the signed folder under your arm. He opens the door, looks at the folder, looks at you standing there in a suit at midnight, and doesn't say a word. He hands the folder back and goes inside. That silence costs more than the 20 farms made you. Doing something decent and making money from it aren't opposites. Pretending they are is its own kind of lie. Your face is on the front page of the county paper, and the headline calls you the man who owns Harlow's Bend. It isn't written like a compliment. It's written like a tally. The article counts your properties the way you'd count charges against someone. Tenants who genuinely like you, and there are plenty, won't say so on the record because defending a landlord out loud costs a person friendships they can't afford to lose. You read the whole thing at the kitchen table in the Maple Street house, the same worst unit you've lived in since you were 20. The company's become what the banks wanted it to be. And then some. This year it goes public. A real estate investment trust. Shares sold to strangers whose pension funds now own pieces of buildings you've walked twice, boots in the weeds, since before some of those strangers were born. That's the part that actually changes something in you this year. More than the money does. It isn't about hiding your wealth anymore, the way it was at 25 when you were counting quarters at the car wash. It's that a decision you make on a Tuesday afternoon now moves through a teacher's retirement account in a state you've never visited, and she'll never know your name, and you'll never know hers. At every level below this one, the consequences of what you did landed mostly on you. A bad deal cost you sleep, a good deal earned you a roof. Now the consequences fan out into rooms you'll never stand in. Otto tries to explain it to you once, plainly, the way he explains everything. You used to be able to see the edges of what you were responsible for, he says. Fence line here, tenant there, one bank down the road. You can't see the edges anymore. That doesn't mean they stopped existing. It just means you have to imagine them instead of walking them. You take that seriously in a way you didn't expect to. You start asking a question before every major decision that you never used to need. Not, is this profitable? But who's standing somewhere I can't see on the other end of this? It doesn't make you soft. It makes you slower, on purpose, in rooms full of people who are moving fast. In a conference room that fall, your partners want to sell off the original parcels before the shares go public. The grain co-op lot, Maple Street itself. Flip the legacy properties, juice the numbers, make the opening price pop harder for the cameras. It's good math. Nobody in the room is wrong about the math. You say no. Flat. No speech attached to it. Maple stays. Mrs. Calloway's rent stays frozen. That's not up for the vote. A founding partner calls you a museum curator to your face and walks out, taking his shares with him. When the company goes public that fall, the opening price comes in lower than the number your partners wanted. The market reading the same hesitation the room read in you in front of everyone who works for you. You keep the decision anyway. That weekend you drive Otto along the fence lines of the newest parcel, windows down because he can't walk it on foot anymore. He watches the posts go by without saying much, and then, near the end of the drive, asks the only question that's mattered to him in 50 years. You still got Maple? You tell him you do. He nods at the windshield like that's the only answer he needed. At a certain size, your decisions stop being just yours. You either learn to imagine who's on the other end of them, or you stop looking. The default letter is one page. The address is the whole story. Bridleworth. The Ashworth place. Stopped paying 8 months ago, quietly, the way families like that always go quiet first. No missed calls, no explanations, just a loan that stops moving until somebody's desk finally notices. Your company handles files like this dozens of times a year without you ever seeing them. This one, your asset team preps like any other. Foreclosure filed, eviction scheduled, auction date set. Routine, except for one name on the docket that stops you cold. Colby. Here's the option available to you, sitting right there in the file. You could go, stand on that lawn while the locksmith changes what needs changing. Say the thing you've been half writing since you were 15, gloves torn, watching him watch you like whether he didn't have to think about. All you'd have to do is show up. You drive out to Bridleworth at dawn. Not for that. The shed at the Ashworth place isn't locked. There's nothing left in it worth stealing. In the corner, under a tarp gone stiff with dust, there's an old push mower, older than you, oiled once a year out of habit by somebody who probably doesn't remember why anymore. You roll it out onto grass that hasn't been cut in a month. You mow it yourself. Straight lines, the kind you learned for $40 a lawn on somebody else's ranch a lifetime ago, on the other side of a fence you didn't own yet. Colby watches from the kitchen window. Older now. Phone in his hand at first, then not. He doesn't film anything this time. You load the mower back into the shed and leave without knocking. That week, without a meeting, without a note, without your name appearing anywhere he'd recognize, your lawyers extend the lease on the Ashworth place at a number he can actually carry. The speech you carried for 46 years never gets said. What's left where it used to be isn't triumph. It's quiet, like a debt finally coming off the books, the kind that was never really about money in the first place. In April, you take Otto to Maple Street. He can't really walk anymore, so the last walk you ever do together is 20 yards of sidewalk, his hand on your arm. Past the porch you fixed with your own hands the summer you turned 20. He stops at the property line and stands there a long time. I was scared back then, he finally says. Scared that hill would teach you to hate people. You don't answer. There isn't a good answer. It just taught you to look, he says, and pats your arm once, like that settles something. Otto dies that spring in his sleep, at the workbench where all of this started. In his hands, when they find him, is a folded piece of paper, a hand-drawn map in pencil of every parcel the two of you ever walked together, each one dated in his blocky handwriting, going back to a dusk in Bridleworth when you were 15 and didn't know what you'd just found in the dirt. He kept the map his whole life. He never once showed it to you. A week after the funeral, you're back in that garage with the old surveyor's chain in your hands, the one you took off your own office wall to bring here. 46 years since you pulled it out of a fence line that wasn't yours yet. The number is real now, and somehow, it's almost beside the point. Timber, ranch land, city blocks, ground underneath buildings that carry other people's names. You still drive a truck with a bench seat. You still work out of the same rented office above the hardware store. That's still on purpose. It was always on purpose. You think, standing there, about what Otto told you at 31. That knowing how value works and owning it are two different lives, and most people only ever get one. You got both. And you understand now that the reason wasn't just patience, it was luck, and Otto, and a chain that happened to surface under your shovel instead of somebody else's. You hang the chain over Otto's workbench, above the pencil map, above the duct-taped gloves he never replaced. Mrs. Calloway still lives in the good unit at Maple Street. 91 years old, rent frozen at the same number you promised her 40 years ago. She still pays early, in cash, in an envelope with your name in the same careful cursive it's always been in. That afternoon, you sign a ground lease. 99 years, a building on land you'll never see finished. Your lawyer points out gently that the lease outlives you by decades. You sign it anyway. It's the first date on your calendar that falls after your own funeral. Your mother's math used to run Friday to Friday. Yours runs past the headstone. Not because you're richer than the families up on that hill were, but because somewhere along the way, thanks to a man who never owned an acre of what he taught you to see, you learned to measure things they never had to teach their own kids to measure. Time, attention, what you're actually responsible for versus what you can get away with ignoring. At dusk, you drive out to the newest parcel. Open ground, no buildings yet, fence posts still soft in the fading light. You walk it once, boots in the weeds, the way you've walked every piece of ground since you were 15, with torn gloves and $9 an hour. At the far corner you stop. There's nobody on your arm this time. Nobody testing the soil with two missing fingers. Nobody left to nod. You say it anyway out loud, to open ground that doesn't answer back. Walk it again. Somewhere back in Bridleworth right now a shovel is coming down on a fence line that hasn't moved in 80 years. It's about to hit something that isn't dirt. Nobody's told the kid holding that shovel what it means yet. The ground never does. Not the first time. What you own ends with you. What you taught someone to see, doesn't.